Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris and I'm a gorilla in the wrist. Today we're looking at this Megir watch that Homage is a very expensive brand and asking the question, does it look $1 million? Let's find out. So before we get into it, we're just going to do a quick run around the specifications and dimensions. So this watch has a 42mm dial, lug-to-lug width of 55mm, which is monstrous. There is no lug width because it's an unintegrated strap, but it is 15mm deep. It has a fairly standard mineral crystal on it, only 5 meters of water resistance, but a decent quartz movement and weighs in at 115 grams. So let me give a quick run around this watch. This is the Megir 8411. It's clearly supposed to look like a skeletonized dial. I guess it's homage in a Richard Mille. I went and had a look at the RM website, and there are watches with very similar case styles as this. So that's where I guess it's going, and that's where I think my mind went when I kind of saw it. I've not worn a sort of tank style watch in the sort of the Richard Mille oeuvre, so to speak, and therefore I thought I just wanted to see how it wore, and how it kind of went for me. It is a bit of a big bugger, to be absolutely honest. So the dial case is 42mm across, but the lug to lug, because of the integrated bracelet, is absolutely huge. I suspect lug to lug wise you're probably looking at 55mm. There isn't a strap width because essentially it's integrated into the watch itself. And therefore you couldn't replace this strap. At least I don't think you could replace this strap. But it is the width of the watch itself at the bottom and does come out. And actually, the strap itself is a really, really nice soft rubber strap. Big kudos for that. I think that's really, really good. It has clearly this skeletonized dial, or not, as the case may be. It is a chronograph, and actually the chronograph function on it is very, very good. Start, stop, and reset at the bottom. It does work as a lap timer as well, if that's your thing. And we have a dial at the 12 o'clock, which is sort of half seconds, I think. The sub-dial at 6 o'clock is clearly seconds. And then to the left-hand side at the 9, we have the minute sub-dial. It does work as a lab counter, so if I just stop it for a second, press it again to start, it jumps forward to the time where it was. So actually, pretty decent as a chronograph. Let's just reset that all the way back. It's not working, is it? Let's stop it. There we go. As I said, it's like myself really, it is a bit of a chunky monkey. I don't think this is quite coming across, but you're looking at a thickness of about 15mm. It wears big as well, so you can stick it on wrist so that you can see it. So it does conform nicely to the wrist because of that really nice strap. Nice blue actually. But it sits and it rides quite high up on your wrist, just because of that 15mm size. And that's about it really. Let's get into the likes and dislikes.
So let's talk about the things that I'm not a big fan of, the dislikes on this one. And the first one is mineral crystal. So clearly at 25 quid, my expectation was probably a bit wrong if I was expecting a sapphire crystal. And I'm pretty sure I knew what I was getting when I bought it. But I think the challenge for some of these watches, as the price slowly creeps up on them, is that it puts them in competition with other watches, which do have higher specifications. Although having said that about this mineral crystal, I did not whack it a couple of weeks ago, and I thought this video was never going to get made because I thought I'd scratched the crystal. It was only when I tried to polish and buff it up that it kind of cleaned up. So actually, it may not be a huge problem that it's just a mineral crystal. The second thing not really sure about with this is this idea of the sort of skeletonized dial. Is that actually, I don't think it is particularly skeletonized. I think it's a little bit on the flat side. I kind of would expected a little bit of depth in there if it was a proper skeletonized watch, and I'm just not convinced that that is the case. The third thing is that this is a chunky monkey, and that's coming from a chunky monkey. This really does wear quite big and quite thick, and I know that's the gig. I know that's what it's going for. But for me, it's odd that as I've got further into the habit, into the hobby, I've got more and more attracted to smaller watches. I don't necessarily want, although I can wear a watch at this size because I have 8.5-inch wrists. I find that I don't necessarily get a big buzz out of that, and this is fairly hefty as well. So I don't think that necessarily works for me. The other thing, and I know these watches are for show rather than for telling the time, but I found the visibility really hard. I can't tell you the number of times I looked at my wrist and thought, well, there seems to be a brick on my wrist and I can't actually read what the hands are telling me. Now, it might just be me, but my expectation of a watch is, as well as a beautiful piece, it should be a beautiful timepiece. And so a little bit disappointed in that. The visibility isn't all that good on this particular one. Maybe I'm being a bit unreasonable, I'm not sure. But those are the principal dislikes. In terms of the likes of it, I must confess the chronograph on it is really good. There's a smoothness to the operation of the buttons. I like the half second along with the second. I think that's really, really good. And it is very, very efficient. It just feels, the operation of it is really, really good, really, really subtle. So I think I have to give credit for that. I like the strap. The strap is wonderful. It really does have a little bit of that silky softness about it. Me stroking it like that's not at all helpful, is it? But it's really good. It does help what is a very big watch sit on your wrist pretty well. So I was really impressed. Really flexible and soft. I like the little blue pop of rubber on the crown. It does make it really easy to grip. But visually I think it provides a good colour. It's just a shame that colour doesn't appear anywhere else on the dial, but it doesn't play that through. The final thing, which was a bit of a surprise, is for the lump that it is, the finishing on it is really nice. It does have that almost silky brushed finish on the main dial with the little sort of fake screws, because they're not real, but the fake screws with a sort of slightly higher polish. You look at the sides and it keeps that not quite bead blasted, but very high brush. And even when you go to the back of it, is that they've got some differentiation between these bits on the outside here and the inner side. So the ones on the outside are much more polished than what there is on the inside, the Megir. I just think it's a little bit surprising that a little bit of attention to that detail, but it works really, really well for the watch. So I started off asking the question that for a watch that is homaging a major multi-million pounds brand, does this one look $1 million? And I think the conclusion I've reached is that it doesn't. I kind of like Megir watches because I think quite often if you want to try out a different style of watch without spending lots of money, actually these are really good for that. And certainly when I tried the Monaco one, the Megir Monaco, actually I quite enjoyed it. It was quite good fun, and it did tell me that I liked that style of watch, so I think there's a place for them. I think in this one, I think they needed just to go a little bit more extreme on the dial. I think if they had created a bit more depth in there, I think it would have been really good. And I've seen other brands do it at budgets as well. So I think it can be done. But for me, this one is just too big. The other issue I have with it is that I think the previous Megir I picked up for £10 or £15. This one was 25, although it's going for 20 at the moment. But at £25, they're kind of putting themselves in the way of the lower end Addy's Dive Quartz watches. Now, we'll stick up a picture of one of those, and I have to ask the question, between these two watches, which one would you prefer to buy? And I think at sort of £23, about the same sort of price, I think I'd probably go for the Addy's Dive. I mean, it doesn't have a sapphire crystal, but it has a really reliable quartz movement in it. It's got 200 metres of water resistance, and I've had about 3 or 4, and they're just really, really good watches. So I think part of the challenge for this watch is that when it steps above the sort of £25-30 parapet, all of a sudden it puts itself in the line of watches that are much, much better, and I think that's where this one falls over. I think it's probably pushed itself a little bit further than it needs to go. Not for me, not a terrible watch, but a big one. Let's put it that way. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe and comment. I will put up a link to the other Megir watch that I did a review of about 1.5 years ago, which was the Monaco, which is that was a lot of fun. So go and have a look at that one. In the meantime, it's Saturday afternoon, the sun's out. I'm off to the garden for a little bit. Have a wonderful week, everybody, and I hope to see you back very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.